Hi, this short podcast is going to show you how to use the graphing tool in late night labs, which you use many times over the course of the labs. So come back and keep reviewing if you're having any issues with it. So the first part is when you have to do a graph, you're going to see that where you have your notes, portfolio, graphing, you hit the graphing button over here, or you can click it underneath the information. It'll say click using your table data, create a graph. So I'm showing a blank data because I don't want to give any answers away. But if you go back, this is the graphing tool that'll open up for you, and you can see it's got a couple of things you need to pay attention to. The first is a graph always needs a title, and then you also need to label your X and Y axes. So you can see there, this is where you would put that data in. And then here is where you would put your x-axis and your y-axis data that you generated. And what's nice is it'll actually produce the graph for you, and then you can get information from the graph like the slope and the y-intercept. So originally there's just some numbers on the blank graph, but as you put your own numbers in, they will change to the ones that you do it. So this will be an example of where you get graphing information from. It will be in a lab, and it'll be a table that you filled out in your lab report, and then the graphing feature will be right below. So this next slide will show you what you need to do. So in your graphing tool, label your axes. So here's where you label your x-axis, here's where you label the y-axis. In the short responses, they usually tell you what you're going to put in your X and Y axis. So make sure you read up in the short responses to make sure that you're getting your independent and your dependent variable correct. Rule of thumb is the independent variable, the part that you are manipulating, becomes your X value. And your absorbance, in this case, the dependent variable, becomes your Y value. So another way to remember is that your Y value, the numbers usually go up and down, and on the Y axis, the numbers go up and down. So they go vertically instead of horizontally. Giving your graph a title, always a title that makes sense to the information that you're doing. And then if you're plotting a graph like in the pH buffer lab, you're going to need many more rows than just the 8 or 9 that are showed here. So you just need to keep hitting add row, and then you'll be in good shape. So finally, I'm showing you an example of a graph with some made-up numbers, but you can see here when I wrote the title in starch concentration versus absorbance, the title appears at the top of the graph. Then on the x-axis, I put our different starch concentrations, which is what we were manipulating. Which are the independent variable, which was what we were manipulating, the change in starch concentration. And you can see the numbers that I put in have filled up across the bottom of the graph, and it's spaced it out nicely for you. So the easiest way to do graphs is when you use these online resources. And then our plots of the absorbance, and again, these are made up numbers. Make sure you do not use them when you get to your enzyme lab. And then you can see here we are figuring out what that graph would look like. And what's nice about this program is it always gives you the slope, and in this lab you actually need to use that slope to figure out concentrations and for the next part. Make sure when you finish doing your graphing you hit this button, the Save Graphing button, otherwise when the professor gets to grade your lab report there'll be nothing in it. So keep coming back to this resource, because this is something that you're going to be needing to use over and over again until you become proficient at doing the graphing, and then get good points for your graphs on your lab. Have fun!